Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today on how to drive the right digital employee experience and drive engagement and company culture. I am Troy Trudell. I'll be the moderator today. We'll actually give people a few more minutes before we officially begin, just to make sure everybody can log in and get into the webinar. So I'll start at about 3 to 5 past the hour. We'll just give people a couple more minutes, and then we'll officially get things kicked off. All right, well, let's get everything kicked off now. We are recording this, so anybody that's a little bit late will share the recording, and we'll share with all the attendees anyway. So again, my name is Troy Trudell. We are going to talk today about how the right digital employee experience can drive engagement and company culture. Just a little bit about Akumina. We're the host of this webinar. We are a software company that provides what we call an employee experience platform. It really allows our customers to build the right experiences for their unique employee challenges. And today, luckily, you'll hear more from our panelists than from me about what some of those challenges could be and how they get solved. And so just keep in mind, we are hosting this webinar and can do any follow-up with you folks if you want to know more about some of our customers and what they're doing to solve their employee experience challenges. One of the things I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is we were recently featured in Forrester's report on intranet platforms and were awarded a strong performer category, which is great. Good testament to the platform that we've built and the success that our customers have seen with it. From a housekeeping perspective today, again, we will record the webinar and send that out to everybody. We can also make slides available as well. Anytime you have a question, you can use the GoToWebinar panel to ask the question. We've got, in addition to myself, we've got somebody else watching those questions so that we can answer them at the end. Please follow us on both LinkedIn as well as Twitter, and check us out at akumina.com to learn more. The format of today's call is going to be a little bit different than some webinars maybe we've run in the past. We do have slides, but those slides are really going to be centered around questions that we'll ask our panelists. So I'll be moderating and asking the questions today, but we'll have some panelists that will be answering those questions and talking about their experience in this space. So let's meet the presenters. We've got 3 panelists for today. Mike Gregory, Director of Systems Engineering at BA Insight. They're one of our technology partners. Karen Vieira is the Chief People Officer at Church's Chicken. Church's Chicken is one of our customers. And Steve Bingall is a consultant and subject matter expert in this employee engagement space with Spark Trajectory. And Steve has worked with us for many years now and is a great expert in kind of the realm of what we'll be talking about today. So again, the format's going to be one where I'll go through and ask questions of the panelists and ask one of them to weigh in and then ask the others if they'd like to weigh in as well. And so I'll start with Karen for this first question here. This has been a challenging year so far for I think anybody in business. Most organizations like we have here at Akumina, where they can have gone to a fully remote approach, or they're just now starting to get back into the workforce in some capacity. So I guess what sort of productivity challenges have you noticed as a result of these changes, and what are some of the solutions you've implemented or seen implemented as you kind of get through this challenge as an organization?
So happy to share, Troy. And I would say that our productivity actually increased as opposed to decrease. We were working much longer hours, and I think many of you can relate to that. Our corporate office supports the U.S. across the United States and international. So our days were longer. And I would say it's odd for an HR person to necessarily say this, but the 2 items that are the 2 initiatives that we implemented were both IT related. We started our workplace digital platform over a year ago, and having that as a single source of contact for our distribution for any information COVID related was just phenomenal. We had always, had this vision that the digital workplace would be our single source of contact, and it proved to really be that case. And you hope when you're making an investment in technology, or you're making any kind of an investment, that it proves to be the right decision. And our digital workplace was just phenomenal. We were able to share anything COVID related. So we had one communication that was COVID related every day, and that information was posted on the digital workplace. It was such a success. So we communicated to our company restaurants, our corporate office, and to over 1,500 franchisees that were across the United States and internationally. It was such a success that we fully launched the digital workplace in the middle of COVID, because we had started it and we had partially launched it, but we ended up fully launching to Asia Pacific, the Middle East, and the Americas, because they were so interested in any COVID related information. So that was a huge win for the engagement, for the drivers of information, to keep that connection. And we used it in other ways for engagement, which I think we'll probably talk about in a moment. So the digital workplace was the one initiative. The second initiative was Microsoft Teams. We launched it about a week after we were all 100% remote at the corporate office. So not the ideal way to download and do training. Fantastic. I couldn't recommend it more. So these 2 IT initiatives from an HR person were the best investments we've made, and really drove productivity and I would say engagement and just connectivity. So it was fantastic.
Awesome. That's great to hear. It is always good when those investments pay off. And I liked how you're using both a digital workplace platform and a collaboration tool like Teams to really get the right parts of your jobs done. Steve or Mike, anything you might want to add about challenges either your organizations have faced or you've seen clients face?
Yeah, and one of the things that sorry, Steve. One of the things that I know noticed early on when companies went from being largely in the office to almost exclusively remote was IT departments had to spend a couple of weeks just to enable people to work remotely. And Karen, you talked about accelerating the rollout of Teams. That's things like that are things that we've seen quite a bit, which kind of enabled people to get to a baseline level of productivity. But then things like a digital experience, which becomes the main touch point to the organization, are things that we've seen more and more. So I guess my point, Karen, is the two kind of touch points that you talked about are things that we've seen across our customers. We work largely with Fortune 500 kind of organizations, and the same two sorts of things that you talked about are things that we've seen over and over again.
Yeah, I'd sort of echo what Mike is saying as well. So I do some consulting with the Digital Workplace Group, for example, and they're very common theme, often using an intranet or a digital workplace as a place for centralizing information and having reliable, up-to-date, real-time comms that people kind of trust, and then also using Teams or an equivalent, but mainly Teams as the collaboration and the kind of the team coordination effort as well. I suppose the other thing I'd say I've also seen is I think particularly with intranets and with digital workplaces and more kind of social platforms, is they've been a place for quite a lot of kind of engagement-led activity that's been really effective in helping people kind of get a sense of connection in what's quite a stressful kind of time. So and there's lots of nice examples of intranet teams putting together obviously kind of hubs that provide reliable information, but then also organizing kind of more engagement-led activities, and with and CEOs kind of doing some great great authentic comms, they're doing kind of daily videos, and as you can find lots of examples, of even CEOs leading kind of Zoom gym classes and things like that. So I think it's been really important in providing that kind of engagement for people, particularly employees who are remote, maybe feeling lonely, have been furloughed as well, and still want to keep in touch with the organization. And I think that's been important in driving kind of a community and connection.
That's great. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think about the kind of the social aspects of that. We do quite a bit of that here at Acumatica too, where we get together remotely, kind of off of work topics, right? Just because we do miss our coworkers. They do often become like a second family, and so that is a good point to make. This next question, I'd love to start with you again, Steve. It's probably going to dovetail off of some of the things you just mentioned, but how does an intranet specifically, or how should it contribute to productivity and engagement, and ultimately kind of driving that company culture? What are some of the things that you've seen work in the past in your travels?
Well, yeah. So a kind of intranet, and sometimes it's an intranet or a portal, or sometimes it can be more of a kind of digital workplace, the way it's sort of branded. It actually supports productivity and engagement in multiple ways. And I think at its base, the most important thing that it does, it helps employees complete tasks and get things done. So it's the place you can book your annual leave or book your vacation. It's the place you can order travel tickets, etc. So it's kind of it's the hub for task completion, as it were. The other thing intranets do or should do, and they don't often do it as well as they should do, is being the place where you can find things. So findability is really, really important for the everyday employee experience. There's nothing more frustrating than wasting a lot of time trying to find information that you need just to do your work. So when you go into an intranet, it should really connect you with the people, the content and the apps you need to do on a sort of day-to-day basis. So that's more of the kind of productivity side, because without that sort of source, you can end up having multiple apps open, having to remember multiple passwords, things like that, things which are kind of often a barrier just to getting the basic things done. The other thing is, more on the sort of engagement side, as probably echoes some of the things I've just said about how intranets have supported the companies during COVID, is it provides a place for people to stay informed, and that's really important, because particularly where people can, it democratizes access to information. So if you want to encourage a kind of culture of transparency, where people are being open and honest, and people feel like they're being treated like adults, an intranet which has good kind of communication is really important, and that leads to sort of engagement. And then I think there's the more of the kind of what I'd say is the sort of culture side, which is much more around providing facilitating a connection to your to fellow employees, driving a kind of information about values and leadership sort of communications. That's kind of can be a fairly, well, that's a very sort of essential ingredient. And then where you start to get people who feel they have a voice and can publish things like blogs, or just respond to in discussions, etc. When you start to do that, the intranet starts to mirror your kind of, I guess, mirror your culture, because it's kind of like a sort of reflection of everyone's kind of activity. So you go on your internet homepage, and suddenly it's a dynamic and lively place, reflecting on what people are doing right across the organization. And I think, to me, that's, in a global organization, that's really sort of powerful. So it's sort of it's multiple, drives efficiency, but then also it kind of connects, but then mirrors what everyone's sort of doing, and surfaces it.
Awesome, great. Karen, anything you might want to add?
Yes, and I would probably follow along with what Steve said, but engagement drivers, as I think about it, is there's a knowledge piece. So helping people understand what's going on, and being able to have that single source for all the COVID information really was a peace of mind. And then there's another piece, which I think is huge, and sometimes we have to make time for it, which is the fun aspect of engagement, and having that social aspect. So we really used our digital workplace to have some fun, in addition to making sure we had all the knowledge pieces there. But we had the, thank goodness for our restaurants that were managing the delivery and drive-through. They weren't open, but they had the ability to do delivery and drive-through, and connecting with all of those folks that were in the restaurants, making sure they were appreciated. We had them, we sent them out t-shirts, we sent them out gifts, and let them do videos of how they were doing, what were the new procedures how were they putting that into place. So they videoed themselves. How were they having fun during the day? They weren't having guests coming in, but how were they managing delivery, and just recognizing them, really using it as a recognition tool. So we let them take pictures, we let them take videos, we posted that on our digital workplace. Our digital workplace in certain aspects looks like Facebook. And they love to see themselves, they love to see their teams. They go on there because they want to see their restaurant featured, and they want to see, how we acknowledge them or recognize them. We had a CEO message and a CEO chat ongoing through COVID, through the whole time. How are you doing? What questions do you have? Here's what leadership has to say. We'd love to hear from you. So we were using it with a chat feature, and just making sure that we celebrated and had fun. We had some amazing accomplishments. We opened 10 restaurants in Asia in the middle of the pandemic. So, really making sure we highlighted, this is incredible. Look what the teams did. And you have to make it fun. They're working long days. People are in a new situation. There's a lot of uncertainty. So connecting with them and keeping that connectivity is critical, and I don't want to lose that going forward either.
Awesome. That's pretty impressive. Opening up new locations during the middle of all this.
I
Um,
know. Yeah, fun.
So Mike, this next question is for you to at least start, and I'm sure Steve and Karen might want to weigh in on this one too. But in your opinion, what's the most important feature that every intranet should have?
And I'll preface this for those of you who out there may not be familiar with BA Insight. We're a company who sells a suite of products that ultimately enable enterprise search. And so, viewing things through that lens, I'm going to say that search is the most important feature for a lot of the reasons, actually, Steve, that you mentioned a minute ago, where there's nothing more frustrating than needing some information to perform a task and being unable to find it. We've seen studies from organizations like McKinsey that, in a large organization, a typical employee spends nearly 2 hours a day simply looking for information as opposed to doing their job. And what we see is when you resolve that, in fact, going back to the last question, is when that's resolved, then people feel like the company has made an investment in the findability of their information so that they have at their fingertips what they need to do their job. There's a kind of they view that as an investment in themselves. So the level of employee engagement, employee satisfaction tends to go up as the quality of the ability to find information within their organization increases. So, so for those reasons, I think really, search is the most important thing, not only because of the reasons I talked about, but also because it very often is the thing that gets forgotten. So you stand up a beautiful digital experience, which is great for the information that can be pushed to someone, but then very often, as soon as an employee needs something that's not right there on the front page or easily accessible, that may be in some entirely different system, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And so, thinking of search as part of a digital experience rollout, I think is absolutely critical.
Those are great points, especially with siloed information, right? Not everything lives natively in the intranet,
Exactly.
but people go there to search, right? That's the first place they might think of to search. So if you can give them a great search experience from there, that could certainly help improve the experience and engagement. Steve, do you want to add anything to kind of your opinions on most important feature?
Well, I certainly think having a good search is really important, and findability in general is really important. So there's obviously other ways to find information, like a navigation, for example. But I'd actually say, I suppose when we talk about a feature, we're probably thinking about kind of capabilities. But I'd probably actually say the most important, perhaps an element of an intranet is the content. So this is, basically, if you don't have good content on your intranet, then it's not going to be a good intranet or a successful intranet. And by content, that is things that are useful, engaging, findable, up to date, and kind of trusted. So, fundamentally, one of the key things an intranet does is help you get things done, keep you informed, and obviously, and keep you engaged. And some of the things that Karen was saying about the kind of information they've put on the digital workplace at Church's Chicken, that's been absolutely critical, in the last few months. So I'd say I go for kind of content. But loads of other features are essential, like a good employee directory, and a nicely designed homepage, integrations where you can complete transactions, all those kind of things.
That's great. And Karen, anything to add?
So, and I agree that the searchability and the content are critical. You have to have those, but I think there's a social element to the digital workplace and the features of making it interactive, providing the video capability, using it as a connector. We use it beyond just the knowledge base and the information base, but we're trying to enhance the fun element of social, and we're able to do that through our digital workplace. So that's, I think, what keeps people coming back, is that, okay, I went in there for this article, but hey, there's a great picture. I want to read the story about how we're recognizing one of our employees. So it keeps that interest going. So I love all what you all said, but I would add the social aspect is hugely important to having them come back.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
No, can I just add? So I think that's right. And actually, you can kind of see the three elements that we've highlighted here. You know, they kind of need to all exist in a way, because obviously if you have content, you have to have a good search to be able to find it. If you want to have engaging content, you have to have those social elements that people, you know, like video and pictures and kind of posts, you know, the kind of content that people look outside work, you know, and so it's interesting that we come up with three things. I think, you know, they're probably all absolutely essential, and they all coexist in a sort of you know, in a good intranet.
Yeah, and they'll support each other as well. If you think about the different things that you've all mentioned, search is great, but if the content's out of date, you know, how good is the experience? If I can't engage with the content and either promote it or you know, really get engaged with it, maybe I want to share it, maybe I want to comment on it. If I can't do those things, I may not want to go back. So, you know, all of those things are critical, and I do agree. Up-to-date content is a challenge that people definitely run into, and I think it's one of the things that's very, very important as well. So I'd agree. It's like legs of a stool. All of them need to be there.
And then obviously, if you know, the thing is, if you have a good search, people can find what they need. Then that encourages people to keep content up to date. If content's up to date and engaging, that encourages other people to contribute more socially. So it's a kind of virtuous circle in a way. So
it is, definitely. Well, these next few questions I'm going to direct to the individual panelists to start, and if Steve or Mike and these next couple you want to weigh in after, just let me know. But these next two are going to be for Karen. You know, given that you have so many locations in so many countries, and you have so many types of employees, right? You don't just have knowledge workers. You've got your franchisees, you got the owners there, you've got the people that work in the stores across all these different regions. How have you used the intranet to communicate to all of them in different ways?
So we actually have the ability, and that's what I love about the digital workplace. So we have the ability from the corporate perspective to communicate with all of our restaurants, to, you know, have that content available. But we also can speak to the Middle East. So we have it set up as pages, and access is assigned. So the franchisees can't necessarily see what's on the corporate page. There are some things that we do want to share. So the landing page is a shared page, but they go into the franchise section as well as the corporate section. The Middle East, they can't necessarily, we wanted to eliminate confusion. So if you're working in the Middle East, you have when you go into your digital platform is for the Middle East. Or if you're in Asia, you're not going to be looking at the Middle East content. You're not going to be looking at the promotions and everything that's going on in the Middle East. You're going to see the Asia content specific. And the same thing for our franchisees. And we ask them, what do they want to see? What do they care about? Because the franchisees have very specific needs. And very important messages that go out. So we have our wireframe set up the way they want to see it, with quick links, resources, news stories of the day that are relative to them. So each one is almost like a separate digital workplace that's set up for those groups specifically. So they're not wading through areas that are not of interest to them, and we keep it focused on what they care about.
I like how you stated that you included the franchisees in that discussion, right? You know, helping them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it doesn't happen, right? And there's a phrase that we kind of use here at Acumen. It's you can build your digital workplace for the company, or you can build it for the employees. You really can't do both at the same time. And it sounds like you've achieved that, right? You've built corporate pages that are for those employees, but then you've built pages for your franchisees that are really critical to them, and they don't have to wade through things that aren't going to help them get their jobs done. So
yeah,
I like that a lot.
I actually lead the people committee for the franchisees and for all of their organization. And I think my greatest satisfaction is when the franchisees, they remind me to say, Karen, don't forget to put that on Team Churches. And that's like an aha moment that this is valuable to them. And they're reminding me And, I smile to myself and I'm like, yes, I'll get that out there right away. So it's great when it matters to them.
That is awesome. This next question is really about results. I mean, you've mentioned one already, the ability to launch 10 new locations during a pandemic. I think it's a great result. But what are some of the other results you've seen that you might want to highlight?
I would like to highlight maybe the engagement that we've been able to maintain in 2.5 months of our corporate offices being 100% remote, and our team members internationally are all fully remote. So just being able to keep the level of engagement, the level of connectedness. No one is lost for information. They know where to go. We always envision this to be our single source, our single point of information, but during the last 2.5 months, it has accelerated that vision to fruition, and it's exciting. And it's nice for me in HR when my CEO says the digital workplace is everything we wanted it to be, and I didn't know if it was going to get there, and he acknowledges that we're already there. And so I know it's a technology, and normally HR is not so involved in the technology, but we truly are. And to see that work for the company has been exciting.
Yeah, that's great. And you're right. Traditionally, there's been a line between IT and HR, right? And I think those lines have gotten blurred recently, which is a great thing, because you need both, right? You need the technology to support your business, but you also can't forget about the people stuff.
Right.
Which is who we're there to serve. The employees, they run our businesses. So that makes good sense.
And I think.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I wanted to add one thing. This team is small. We put this together. It's a really small team, and it's so. We are so engaged in this process, and we work so well together that my IT lead actually fills in for my communication manager when she's out on vacation. So that's kind of odd, but it's great. What a great team they are. So I give them all the credit.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you do need that great team.
Mm-hmm.
How have you personally used churches to be more effective, if you want to add some more?
So I think just using it to try to drive, having a digital workplace is not something that necessarily everyone understood. They're like, oh, it's just an intranet. And I'm like, no, it really is so much more than an intranet. It's the single source of information for the company. And I think the way maybe we launched it was the best way. As we started out trying to launch it across the company and quickly realized with a small team that wasn't the best way. So we ended up going back and launching it department by department, and they're the content owners. Each department has a content owner for their department, and so celebrating that success and then including them in the next phase of the launch personally was driving engagement, driving collaboration. There were not silos on departments on how they did it. They felt like a team, and I just think it drove information, which is hugely important to share when you're a distributed workforce, and then increasing that engagement and removing silos has been huge for us. So if you can have all those things working together, your teams are going to be more effective in what they do.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. Awesome, thank you. I think the next couple of questions are going to be for Steve. So Steve, you've worked with global organizations, both inside and outside of analyst firms, and as well as organizations themselves. What can you tell us what, in your view, a digital employee experience is and why it's important?
Yeah, so digital employee experience is a term that it's originated more, I think, in the HR space. So it's talked about there's been a focus more on sort of employee experience, or that's what I perceive. I'm not an HR person, but more emphasis on the experience rather than so that goes beyond just employee engagement, I guess. And within the kind of intranet space, I guess there's various different definitions of digital employee experience, or DEX, but one which I think is quite good is something which James Robertson, who's a kind of well-known intranet consultant at a company called Step 2, who I've done a little bit of work with James. He uses this, which I'm going to read. It's digital employee experience is the sum total of the digital interactions within the work environment, and that sounds actually quite sort of broad and sweeping, because actually when your interactions with people digitally, they can be with other people, but they can also be like little day-to-day experiences of trying to find things that can be frustrating, or can be can be rewarding if you find the right thing quickly. And then they also extend to kind of things that are more important or bigger moments that matter, I guess, like your employee onboarding experience, for example. So when people think about digital employee experience, it's kind of you need to be taking a sort of more kind of holistic and kind of strategic view of the employer's digital touch points with their employees. And I think it is really important, because there's lots of stats you can find, lots of research which show the lost productivity you can have without a good digital workplace, the kind of engagement benefits that you can and productivity benefits that you can have from having a great digital employee experience. And obviously, in COVID, in the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been absolutely essential to drive that sort of that quality of the technology experience that you have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like how that quote talks about the entire kind of digital engagement, right? Because you are going to have HR systems, you have IT systems, you might have expense systems, but you also have your content repositories, your social interactions. That sum total of people engaging with all of those does make up that whole experience. I think this question is probably a repeat of the feature one from the intranet, but I'd love for you to be able to add to it if you want to, because I think we talked about a lot of those elements already, right?
I think so, yeah. Findability and getting things done and having one place to go is quite important. So you alluded to, we talked about silos. I think just two little things that maybe we didn't mention was, first of all, flexibility. So facilitating how people want to work, if that's possible. Obviously, at the moment, we're a little bit dictated by external events, but ultimately giving you the choice of working from home or in an office, or at least for kind of knowledge workers. And the other thing I think is, personal growth. Sometimes it's not always acknowledged that actually digital workplaces have help facilitate learning, not only through access to kind of courses and stuff, but also by connecting you with other experts and in communities and stuff like that. So there's lots of different elements. I think we've probably covered most of them already today. So
yeah, I think between the three of you, have done a good job of covering off on those. But thanks for adding to that. The next few questions are for Mike. So Mike, at BA Insight, you talk about making your knowledge askable. What does that mean, and why is that important?
And what it ultimately means, Troy, is it's about making enterprise search more internet-like. So if you think about the way that you look for things in Google or Bing or whatever your favorite internet search engine is, there are certain aspects of that. For example, I can go to Google and ask it a question. Keyword search is fine as far as it goes, but in order to ask complicated things, a user either needs to do several steps or understand potentially complicated syntax. But what if I could go in and just say, what are the, what's the company holiday schedule, or which customers use product ABC, or things like that. The ability to do that makes it a very comfortable, very, very familiar user experience, or experience for the end users. There's also an aspect of personalization to that. So if I go back to my previous example of looking for the company holiday schedule, the stories that we hear over and over again is that I go into my intranet, I type holiday schedule, and what I get is the holiday schedule from Belgium from 2 years ago. Well, what it should be able to do is understand who I am, where I am, and the first result I get should be exactly what I'm looking for. So in the same way that when I ask an internet search engine for restaurants, it understands where I am and prioritizes the items that are closest to me, askable knowledge will respond to a question with the information that's most relevant to me. Okay, so again, it's those two aspects of making it very internet-like, allowing the user to ask questions, literally ask questions as opposed to do complicated keyword searches, but also personalize the results based on an understanding of the user, who they are, where they are, etc.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. How do you think enterprise search helps with increasing productivity and engagement?
And I think over the last 90 days, we've seen great examples of this. I mean, in the course of the conversation, we've talked about things like silos of information. So one of the big challenges that we saw when people suddenly went remote is there's information that I might need to do my job that could be in 7, 8, 10 different systems, and I don't necessarily have remote access to all of them. But a consolidated enterprise search experience that breaks down those silos and gives me one place to look can help resolve that. And the other thing is, there's a social aspect of it as well. So if I'm sitting at my desk about to do something and I know that there's some information that I need and I can't remember where it is, I might, knock on your door and say, hey, Troy, which system would I go to look for this information? Well, now that people are more remote, that's a little less convenient to do. So the frustration level potentially can go up even more as I go from one system to another looking for the information that I need, as opposed to I go to my search box and I ask it, who are the customers that use product ABC? That might come from our CRM system, it might come from some kind of inventory system, it might come from our accounting system. I don't need to think about that anymore. What I need to do is express what it is that I'm looking for. A properly configured enterprise search capability will give me back the results that I need. And then, certainly that increases productivity, because I talked before about that. The actual number that McKinsey used was 1.8 hours per day. And I would suspect that as people suddenly went remote, that number, if they looked again, would have increased. If you have enterprise search in place that consolidates all those silos of information, you can take that number down pretty dramatically. So there's an obvious productivity gain, because I'm not wasting time looking for information. I'm spending my time productively actually using the information that I found.
Great. And then the final question is, what are some considerations that need to be given to an enterprise search implementation, really, before and after the deployment?
And there's a couple. One of them specifically is about the silos of information that we've talked about already, where as an employee, I shouldn't have to look in multiple places to find the information that I need. Now, I'll go back to my internet analogy. If I'm looking to book a trip or go to a restaurant, and I go to Google or Bing, I'm going to get results back from TripAdvisor and OpenTable and all kinds of other sites like that. Enterprise search should do the exact same thing for me. It's about understanding who employees are, where they are, what they need, and making sure that they have access to all of the information from all those systems at a single touch point. They don't have to, we call it store by store search. We don't have to go from place to place. I can get everything that I need right here. Another thing that's very important is sort of the other side of it, is understanding where are the employees working, or where are they when they discover that they need information. In some cases, certainly it might be the digital experience platform, which is why BA Insight and Acumatica work together, is to bring kind of an advanced search capability to the Acumatica platform. But there are times when employees are working in other places when they realize they need something. I could be working in Teams, having a conversation with somebody and realize that I need some information. I might be on the IT or HR help desk working in ServiceNow when I realize that I need information. Or I might be a salesperson looking at an opportunity in Salesforce when I realize that I need something. The same enterprise search capability should follow me to all of those different places, so that whatever system or software I happen to be working in, when I realize that I need something, I should be able to get access to the exact same information that I could if I went to directly to the enterprise search capability. And then I think the last thing is the idea of monitoring and measurement. Search, like most of the things that we've been talking about today, isn't something that you stand up and abandon. And that's something that we saw if you go back 10, 12 years, what people would do is say, great, we've cobbled together enterprise search, roll it out and then ignore it, and that simply doesn't work. You need to have analytics capability that will not only provide IT staff the ability to monitor and understand what's happening in search and make sure that they tweak the environment as that evolves, you also should be able to leverage that information automatically to do things like relevancy tuning. So for example, when users ask certain questions and as a result interact or click on certain documents, over time the system should learn automatically to prioritize those most popular things so that the nature of search evolves as users' needs evolve. So I think those three things are really kind of the big thing. It's considering what sources of information people need, considering where they're working when they need that information, and then kind of the ongoing monitoring and evolution of search as it goes.
Great. Yeah, those are all really good points. I think that's it for the Q&A today. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining and sharing their thoughts. I think I actually love the panelist makeup we had today because you all had different perspectives on things, which I think is, for me, the net takeaway from a session like this is there is no one digital employee experience platform out there, right? It's a combination of tools and techniques and people that make all of this work. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts from any of the panelists before we end the session?
Thank you for the opportunity to share. It's been nice to see how we were able to manage through this and how our team stayed connected. And I think it would have been very different without Microsoft Teams, without our digital workplace. And it's just added to what our company's been able to continue operating and the employees staying connected. So it's always fun to talk about things that are going well and what's working, and I appreciate the opportunity to join today.
And I'd echo that. I think I think it's great when you hear kind of success stories where these tools that perhaps haven't always been regarded with kind of affection, the people love their internet, actually when or Teams, actually when they were needed, they made a really massive difference. And I love that where your franchisees reminded you to put some stuff on your digital workplace. Fantastic. That's excellent.
Love when they do that.
Yeah.
And I really want to echo that and just say, Karen, that it's very, very impressive in particular that you were able to actually roll out new franchises in the midst of all this, as most other companies are rolling things back. It's a testament to the level of commitment you've made to your employees and your franchisees to really create that sense of engagement. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I wanted to reach out to my partners at Acumen. I thank them because in the middle, I really, your days are so long, but I had to take 5 minutes and just reach out to the team at Acumen and say thank you for being our partner through this. And by the way, here's what we're doing in the midst of all of this. And just, what a difference it made to the company. You got to share it and thank your partners along the way.
Well, we appreciate that. And for those that don't know, we can certainly share it after if you're okay with it, Karen. Team Churches produced a video of how they're engaging all their employees in the field and shared it with us, which is awesome for us to see. Because it's a software vendor, we don't always get to see how people use it. That's been amazing for us. We shared it company wide, and it raised our spirits too. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Now, I think you're referring to our launch video before we launched the digital workplace, and it was so important to create that launch video to celebrate something that was going to make a difference and tell people what they could expect. And of course, you got to deliver once you do that. But I think it was part of the engagement strategy up front. I love that launch video. You're more than welcome to share it with anybody that'd like to see it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you all again, both the panelists and the attendees today. We'll go ahead and stop the broadcast now. And we'll make this available, as I mentioned, to anybody that would like to see it. And if you have any questions about what other customers have done and what we see in the marketplace, please do reach out to us here at Acumen as well, and we're happy to set up a call and talk through what we see in the marketplace, as well as maybe some customer examples.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.